Welcome back, legends. I hope you're all fantastic. Today we're taking a look at some tones with the Cali 76 Compact Edition from Origin Effects. We're going to fire it up with my rack on some clean sounds and some heavily distorted sounds, and then we'll do some crunchy stuff with the Revival Drive Hot Rod at the end of the video as well. This isn't going to be a demo selling you on this pedal, because chances are, if you know about this and you like what it does, you've probably already got one or you want to get one. It is truly one of those few pieces of gear that, in my opinion, really lives up to the hype. As soon as I plugged this in, I played a chord and I went, yep, that's doing the thing. But it actually does quite a few things. I think a lot of people will probably just slap this on their pedal board, plug a guitar into it like first or second thing in the chain, and then roll with it. And it's great at that. We're going to hear some tones with that to start. But I really want to experiment with this with my rack setup, and I want to hear it pre-preamp and post-preamp with my boogie for both some clean sounds and some over-the-top lead sounds. So having said that, let's fire up the rack and let's pull some glorious tones. Let's get into it. Let's hear the clean sound. This is just the amp loaded down by the Fractal X Load together with a Greenback IR. It is good old LT TV Mix 7. My cabinet IRs are available for free if you check the video description. Let's hear the clean sound. Tapped neck pickup on this PRS Custom 24. So quite a neutral, sparkly, clean sound. There's no real breakup happening on there. I'm gonna kick the Cali 76 in at one of the recommended settings. When you get one of these and take it out of the box, there's a few cards which basically show you some really good starting settings. So as you can see, I've got the attack just above noon, the release just below noon, and I've set the input and output levels to where I like it with this guitar. So I'll play you a chord and arpeggiate it, and then I'll kick the compressor in. Now, you all know how much I love distortion. You probably love distortion as well. I think one of the best things about playing with distortion is the fact that you get compression. So for playing clean stuff, having a compressor just makes life more enjoyable. And those settings right there just kind of do the job. Another recommended setting in there is basically to turn the attack control all the way counterclockwise and the release all the way clockwise on this pedal. And that's for more of a, I guess, a like single note funk thing. I'll give you a very brief example of that. It feels totally different, and the transient response is totally different, and Origin do a really, really good job of explaining this on their website. So I won't talk too much about it. I'll just give you an example, but first we'll hear this for a kind of little funky line, and then I'll go to the other settings. Pretty good for single notes, especially if you want to do the funk thing, which a lot of people do want to do with this style compressor. But I much prefer the previous settings we had for arpeggios and chords. Again, the first settings were more of just a kind of subtle, fattening, enriching effect, an embiggening effect, if you like, whereas the second set of settings were more of like that compressed effect. The last thing we will try out between the guitar and the amp is blending in some dry signal. I've pumped up the input and the ratio, so there's going to be a lot more compression happening there. The attack I have turned, where have I turned it? almost to about 3 o'clock in the release. I find if basically you think about the average of those as being in the middle, then you're going to have a pretty cool compressed tone. So let's just hear this. I like this as in between those two settings, where it's like a best of both worlds. You do have the dynamics from your dry signal in there, you get the fattening thing, and you get a little bit more of a percussive kind of smack. That one's almost using it like a subtle clean boost. It just gives you more of what you like. While we're living there, let's actually bring some effects in, and now I can talk about the signal chain, and then I'm going to put this after the preamp section in there, which will be pretty fun. So first thing I want to bring in is the Clark Technic BBD 320 to add some stereo chorus. I have this on mode 3. It sounds like this. So the parallel compression there with the chorus is really, really cool. Next, I'm going to bring in an Eventide Eclipse for a dual delay and a Lexicon PCM81 on the concert hall setting. This is just starting to get glorious, absolutely glorious. And then icing on the cake, the Eventide H3500 doing a dual D tune. This is what it's all about, kids. Okay, before we move on, we got to hear this with some distortion. Basically, I'm going to use the same settings and it's going to smooth everything out, make legato a little bit easier, and then I will bring the output control up, basically to give me a boost in front of the dirty sound. Let's do that. Okay, now this is where it gets interesting, and I would consider this like studio style routing, so the compressor is after the preamp section of the amplifier. What we're aiming to do here is to basically just kind of level out the difference between the clean sound and the distorted sound. We want some subtle compression. So the ratio is low. We just set the input and output to where they need to be to get enough compression. And then I've got the attack and the release right in the middle. Let's hear this bypass and then in, and then I will cut in that earlier clip where I had the compressor between the guitar and the amp. We'll try to play the same chords, shall we? So it's doing less of that fattening thing and more of the actual just kind of affected compressing thing, but you still play clean arpeggios and chords and single notes nicely, and it's not pumping or anything like that. Let's hear this with the effects now, because this is where I think it's most effective, having that more consistent, slightly compressed thing happening on the clean sounds, especially on arpeggios, just makes the dry guitar sit a little bit better in the mix with the really wet effects. I'll start with the compressor bypassed and then with it on. So the extra sustain is really saving the day there. I like that a lot. It reminds you of that Queensryche Empire clean sound. I'm going to switch to the bridge pickup now. We can hear some more of this. So that little experiment was really, really interesting. I don't think it changes the feel too much on the heavily distorted stuff at the end there. It changes the feel a little bit, and if you're somebody who's using like a rack preamp together with a rack power amp and you miss that little bit of sag and compression you get from a tube head. Obviously a tube head is going to have a shared power supply versus the separate power supplies on a rack preamp and a rack power amp. Running a comp after your preamp is going to get you some of the way there, but I do have to say I love the way it sounds on the clean sounds. It really does have that studio ready clean on there, and it really makes the overall tone with all those wet effects just kind of pop a little bit more. So I really, really like that. I haven't done any crunch tones yet, and while the Boogie does some great crunch stuff on Rhythm Channel 2, I thought it might be cool to use the Revival Drive Compact here. And if you haven't seen my video with that one, there's a Hot Rod edition. Fantastic distortion pedal. It's a little bit more than a distortion pedal though, because it has this three-way switch on here. If you flick it up, it basically emulates a power amp and a reactive load, so you can just run it into an IR and get some pretty fantastic Marshall style tones out of it. So I'm going Revival Drive into the Cali 76 into the same IR, and there's a bit of reverb coming from my DAW at the moment thanks to Valhalla Room. Great plugin as well. They're all like 50 bucks. I love the Valhalla stuff. Anyway, the point of this is that I want to show you how this cleans up with your volume control, and how using those same settings we had with the Boogie will basically let you equalize the difference between your like full-on crunch and your backed off, cleaned up volume control on the guitar thing. Because remember, the guitar has controls as well. So if you're somebody who has like a single channel amp with an effects loop, or you're using various overdrive boxes on your pedal board and running them into a clean amp, there's a great way to set up a compressor. Off and then on. That's pretty amazing. This is such a good combination. And, you know, just add a delay pedal or a dual mode delay and reverb or something like that. And that is a very giggable setup for me if I was going to go and do like a classic rock covers gig or something like that. So really cool combination there. Origin just make amazing stuff, really. They are some of my favorite pedals out there on the market at the moment. If you haven't checked out the Cali 76 and you're looking for a really great compressor, whether it's for your pedal board or your rack, or, you know, you could use this on bass or use it with your keyboards or something like that. It's just, yeah, it lives up to the hype. You know, it is one of those pieces of gear that's out there at the moment that I think everybody knows it's really good, but the truth is it's really, really good. And hopefully this video gives you some examples of how you can use not only this compressor, but just kind of any compressor in a bunch of different ways that you may not have experimented with yet. If you have any further questions, let me know in the comments. There are links to support the channel in the video description. Hope you all have a fantastic day. Thanks for watching.